We read an article on implications of nursing faculty's cultural competence. Cultural competence is defined as the process in which the healthcare provider/nurse educator continuously strives to achieve the ability to effectively work within the cultural context of a client, student, individual, family, or community. A broad definition of cultural competence is the ability to understand, communicate with, and effectively interact with people across cultures. Cultural competence encompasses being aware of one's own worldview and developing positive attitudes towards cultural differences. The minority group comprises 28% of the U.S. population and is expected to expand to 48% by 2050. IOM stands for Institute of Medicine. The IOM reports that minority groups receive low quality of healthcare services than their Caucasian peers. This can be seen as a health disparity. It refers to the difference in health status of different groups or people. In addition to being underserved, the minority population also has a higher morbidity and mortality rate. The richest 1% of the population lives either 10.1 years, that's for women, or 14.6 years for men, longer than the poorest 1%. Lower income people living in a wealthier area have a higher mortality rate than lower income people living in a poorer area. So how can we improve? First, we can increase the number of minority healthcare providers. Studies have consistently documented that racial, ethnic, minority health professionals are more likely to provide care to racial, ethnic minorities. 2, we can make cultural diversity training a part of nursing licensure requirements. Because becoming culturally competent and sensitive is important to the nursing profession, each school of nursing would need to consider including in its curriculum some form of annual cultural diversity training to help students who are not culturally competent to continue to learn. It is important that we give those who are not culturally competent enough opportunities to develop their competence levels. Nursing faculty that attended a multicultural seminar in the past 5 years scored higher than those who had not. And third, travel when you can. There is also evidence that nurse educators who had lived in another country with a culture different than the U.S. had a significantly higher cultural competence score.
Okay, so now we've discussed what it means to be culturally competent and a little bit of the background of ways that we can become more culturally competent. We're going to dive a little bit further into how our article particularly views that increasing nursing faculty's cultural competence will increase future nurses' cultural competence as well. So we are going to ask, why do we have less minorities in healthcare? So it can be attributed to a couple different things. Some of the schools have low recruitment rates for minorities, and others have, along with the same, have high attrition rates, which is the rate at which students either fail or drop out, along with several other factors. Just to give a couple of statistics for this, for our article, they in particular surveyed several schools in Tennessee. They found that one school revealed that they had 30% of enrolled students for the BSN program were minorities. Another school reported that in the fall of 2005, students enrolled in the RN to BSN were 80% to 82% Caucasian on average, where in 1990, so 15 years prior, there were 16% minorities, where now we're only seeing, and then now 15 years later, we're only seeing 24%, 24% minorities, so not a huge increase. They found that nursing faculty who demonstrated a high level of cultural awareness and sensitivity attended to needs of minority students, whereas those with a lower level of cultural awareness and sensitivity did not attend to the need of minority students, which is going to lead you to the high attrition rates. They also found that minorities deal with language difficulties, lack of support from teachers, coping with sensitivity and discrimination, loneliness, isolation, financial difficulties, and so on, as kind of a good portion as to why we're seeing less minorities in healthcare. So what inspired this study? So both the U.S. Department of Health and the IOM recommended that when your end goal is to increase cultural competency in nursing, that you need to increase the number of minority healthcare providers. Along with the idea that there's contradicting studies on race coordinates. Race coordinates is the idea that anyone of any race, or especially minorities, would respond better to a healthcare provider of the same race as them. And they found that focusing on getting more minority nurses is important because nurses spend the most time with the patient over any other healthcare provider. The study was conducted using the Cultural Diversity Questionnaire for nurse educators. It was sent out via email to, I think, 150 different people. At the end, they were able to use 67 of the applicants' response. They focused on 5 key constructs: culture awareness, desire, knowledge, skills, and encounters. These 5 key constructs were represented in strongly agree to strongly disagree questions, along with a couple other demographic items. The respondents were supposed to rate themselves on how culturally aware they were. So then for the findings, out of the 67 applicants that we were able to use their information for, it came back that 89.5% of those people were Caucasian, and then 6.6% of the remainder is African American non-Hispanics. We saw largest groups in the age of 51 to 60. And then some of the other information that they pulled from this is they found that those who were more culturally competent lived in other areas at some point in their life outside of the U.S., or they attended an educational seminar within the last 5 years. They predict there would be a significant positive correlation between mean nurse educators' cultural competence score, so the educator's score, and then the percentage of minority nursing students admitted to those schools in the past 5 years. But there was no significant correlation found. What they did find was there was a significant positive correlation between the mean nursing educators' cultural competence scores and the percentage of minority nursing students who did graduate, though. This does imply that nurse educators need to increase their cultural competence, enabling them to help students from a diverse cultural background stay in school and graduate. So the purpose of this study was to measure the cultural competence of nursing faculty teaching at accredited BSN programs in Tennessee, and to investigate the relationship between their cultural competence and then the percentage of minority nursing students both recruited and graduating from those schools. Information obtained from the study is beneficial to the nursing profession because we've long urged nurse educators to become more culturally competent and act as role models for students to perform from diverse cultural backgrounds.
So going forward with the findings, since there was only 67 respondents, we have to assume that they're candid. They were candid in their responses and that there was possibly some errors. Things which could have influenced these results, the location of the nursing school where the study was conducted found that nurse educators teach in the area with large number of immigrants were more culturally competent than those living with fewer immigrants. Some schools could also have more nursing faculty who have lived abroad, thereby increasing their cultural competence. Finally, the level of cultural competence acquired by an individual could have also been a direct result of some nursing schools making it more deliberate efforts than others to provide opportunities for their faculty to become more culturally competent. The finding that respondents in the current study had more moderate to high cultural competence should not be interpreted to the mean that all nursing faculty were culturally competent. So some suggestions to increase the minority recruitment. Each school of nursing students needs to create some sort of recruitment team that would regularly achieve an active visit of minority elementary, junior high, and senior high schools. This team also needs to educate both counselors and the students on who nurses are and what they do, and numerous career opportunities available to nurses. The team must also assume responsibility for counseling students on courses that would best prepare them for college studies and various health-related careers, and present strategies that could help these students succeed with competitive nursing school application process. So conducting these health fairs near minority neighborhoods, these could also exceed an excellent method of advertising nursing to minority populations. Newspapers and radio shows targeted at a minority population could have also been an effective channel for advertising for the nursing students. This nursing information could also be disseminated through churches located in minority neighborhoods. Use of gatekeepers such as local community leaders in minority neighborhoods and American Indian tribal leaders could be a great avenue to disseminate news about nursing profession. In addition, advertising nursing programs in movie theaters located in minority neighborhoods could also be effective in spreading news about nursing profession. Using these cultural immersion experiences, the Amish, American Native, American Indian living on reservations, migrant workers, working in communities that have different cultures, reading literature on different cultures, and attending some trainings could be beneficial with us future nurses. These could be achieved locally by nurse educators and nursing students by visiting or staying in segregated groups and communities. These experiences would provide individuals to be in the minority and sometimes feel misunderstood or powerless, as well as individuals to become aware and appreciative and respect of the other cultures around us. Although these strategies might not be feasible for nursing faculty and students due to cost and time factors, other activities could also enhance individuals' cultural competence. For example, within the study that we had read for this research presentation, working with communities that have different cultures from the individuals of reading literature on different cultures and attending these trainings, interacting with individuals from different cultures to learn about their specific values, beliefs, worldviews, healthcare practices could assist individuals to increase their competence. And I don't think not only nurses and healthcare providers, I think overall, just as human beings, this would be beneficial for us all. So attending these social gatherings conducted by individuals from diverse culture groups could be beneficial in nursing educators for the cultural competence. And then how to culturally care for your patient. We talk about this in class all the time by asking mindful questions of whether or not their background. So here are some listed by, is there anything I should know about your culture, beliefs, or religious practices that would help me take better care of you? Is there any dietary restrictions that we should consider before we develop a food plan? And do you have any traditional healers to advise you about your health? We want to avoid stereotyping based on religious or cultural background and understand each person as an individual that may or may not adhere to certain cultural beliefs or practices common in his or her values. Asking our patients about their beliefs and way of life is best way to be sure to know how their values may impact their care.
I wanted to provide you with some facts about other cultures and how they would typically respond to healthcare. This may be the reason why these minority groups do not choose healthcare as their profession due to their own beliefs and cultural values. For example, Jehovah's Witnesses aren't able to have blood transfusions. There are several important cultural beliefs among Asian and Pacific Islanders that nurses should be aware of. The extended family has significant influence, and the oldest male in the family is often the decision maker and spokesperson. The interests and honor of family are more important than those of individual family members. Chinese patients, because of the behavior of the individual reflects on the family, mental illness or any behavior that indicates lack of self-control may produce shame and guilt. As a result, Chinese patients may be reluctant to discuss symptoms of mental illness or depression. Russian immigrants frequently view U.S. medical care with a degree of mistrust. As a result, many Russian patients find it difficult to question a physician and to talk openly about medical concerns. Although Hispanics share a strong heritage that includes family and religion, each subgroup of the Hispanic population has distinct cultural beliefs and customs. Hispanic patients may prefer to use home remedies and may consult a folk healer known as a curandero. The article is that it is important for all nursing faculty to achieve high levels of cultural competence to enable them to identify with and meet the needs of a culturally diverse student body, thereby helping minority students stay in school and graduate. This article has taught us how to be more culturally competent. Not only do we need education on the topic, we also need a more diverse healthcare workers. To achieve this, it has to start at the schools. Because becoming culturally competent is important to the nursing profession, each school of nursing would need to consider including in its curriculum some form of annual cultural diversity training to help the nursing faculty who are already culturally competent and to continue to give those who are not culturally competent enough opportunities to develop their competence levels. In addition, this author strongly recommends that each Board of Nursing mandates annual attendance at cultural diversity training to be a part of the pre-licensure requirements. These are our references.